Hi everyone, my name is Mason Remular. Thank you all for being here today. Today I'll be talking about my senior capstone proposal, and I'll be presenting on the power of authentic stories. A little bit about myself. Again, my name is Mason Remular. I'm a senior here at this beautiful university. I graduated from Pro City High School back in 2021, and currently I'm studying creative media with a gender concentration. Moving over to the executive summary slide, this is a brief overview of all the different things that I'll be discussing in today's presentation, such as my plans for my senior capstone project, talking about my thesis statement, then my objective and rationale of the research that I was able to conduct, and finally addressing the significance of my proposed project with, of course, research to back up my claim. Moving over to my thesis statement. My thesis statement is authentic narrative strengthens connection and a sense of belonging within communities by preserving individual and collective voices, highlighting shared experiences and building trust, thereby creating a necessary foundation for empathy, culture preservation, and resilience. Overall, my thesis statement argues that authentic stories have the unique ability to help people feel connected by preserving their voices and shared experiences, thereby creating a community. Moving over to my objective and rationale for my research conducted slide, I had to define what authentic means. When researching what authentic, I learned that authentic refers to being able to share real lived experiences, cultural identity, and shared memory. And these experiences carry the truth, helping people feel seen, heard, and validated. I wanted to understand the relationship between authenticity, emotion, and culture, and how stories are passed down from one generation down to the next. In a way, what I learned is authentic story doesn't only just build trust, preserve culture, preserve identity and history, but it also has a unique way of bringing and shining light to these voices that are overlooked or silenced. And oftentimes, these voices that are overlooked have the most impactful story to tell. So it's important to bring these voices to light. My research started off with a question. And that question was, why do authentic stories have such a great impact? In order to answer this question, I first had to look at how humans originally communicated with one another and how this form of communication was able to evolve into storytelling. You may ask the question, why is this important to me? This is important to me because for my capstone, I wanted to focus on documentaries and how documentaries have the opportunity to capture untold stories. And in order to capture these stories respectfully and meaningfully, I must do my own due diligence and research and understand what authenticity truly means and how does it build connections. Moving forward to my senior capstone plans. For my senior capstone deliverable, I'll be creating a short documentary series that highlights the work being done by the Viola team. This documentary shows why programs like these matters by sharing real experiences from student mentors and staff, showing how programs like this build trust, connections, and a sense of belonging. My goal is to document these voices and stories in a way that preserves emotion, memory, and identity, ultimately inspiring the next generation of college students here at this university. During my project, I'll be using YouTube as my main source of platform where I'll be posting my series on top and be cross-promoting on various platforms like X, also known as Twitter, Instagram, and sharing the progress behind the scenes. Progress like how my series is going and posting little bit pictures here and there and of course, short clips. Moving over to the significance portion of our presentation, when learning about authentic and authenticity, there were so many things that was brought to my attention. Throughout this presentation, I'll be sharing three main points, and the three main points is meaning, trust, and connection. Moving over to my first significance. My first significance is all about meaning. What I learned from Mufasa, Gruder, and Cruz, Chambers, Ephion, McBride, and Dorr, they all have the same common ground when it comes to storytelling. It's how stories can connect a person to the past, present, and future. And across all cultures, such as Native Hawaiians and Native Americans, they were able to use oral traditional storytelling as a way to pass down traditions, values, and history. They did this by just talking to each other, talking stories, passing down one information down to the next generation. In a way, what I learned is stories are more than just words. They have the unique ability to carry value, beliefs, and share memories. Memories of the ancestors, of all the pain and suffering they went through, but not just pain and suffering, but also lessons. The lessons that they were able to learn, and everything in between can shape a person's sense of belonging and identity. Another thing I learned is traditions. Traditions are just as important because they remind you of your own cultural roots, your cultural identity. And it's always important to never forget where you became and where you came from. In a way, authentic narratives protects cultural identity because for communities that are overlooked or over silenced, it helps keep the history alive. It keeps the history alive just by talking about it. Being able to talk about it and share this information to the next person is what keeps it alive. At the end, storytelling becomes a bridge between generations, linking one generation to the next, where the elders can share and pass on their valuable knowledge and information to the kids, and the kids can learn values, history, lessons directly from the source, directly from the elders. In a way, my future applications is authentic narrators carry language, values, and history through the use of oral traditions, so just by talking stories. In a way, recording these stories is essential because it protects cultural knowledge. Moving over to my second significance. My second significance is all about trust. When reading these articles, Foster, Gruder, and Cruz, Gonawan, Deere, and Brown said the best. Authentic stories build trust. Being able to share honest, real, emotional narratives, it creates real connections between the storyteller and the listener. And through this process, trust is formed through the vulnerability and lived experiences. Vulnerability isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength because it allows others to know and learn that it's okay. And whatever struggle they may be facing is the raw truth, and others may be facing similar challenges. Trust is the core. In order to create a space that is safe, you, the facilitator, or you, the storyteller, must be vulnerable first. Again, vulnerability isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. Mufasa states that authentic stories makes people feel seen, understood, which leads to empathy, stronger relationships, and deeper communication. Being able to share real narratives strengthens the relationship between one another. And at the core of it, trust is the foundation of being able to capture real experiences. For my future applications, authentic stories help people feel connected through empathy and trust. And this is important to me because my documentary is going to focus on like peer mentoring, strengthens the relationship by letting students learn from real experiences. Just by talking stories with these people, they learn that whatever struggle they may be facing, they're not alone. They have others to lean on to support them. They have others that walk the similar path. And this is what it's all about, trusting each other. Moving over to my third significance. My third significance is all about connection. What I learned from Chambers, Ifan, Gunawandina Brown, I know I keep on bringing these names up time after time, but they just have the best information and knowledge to share with everyone. And what I learned is storytelling can strengthen community sense of belonging. Like I mentioned before in the previous slide, vulnerability isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength, because being able to share your real experiences creates a space for others to do the same. Whether if that experience is joy, pain, sadness, or excitement, it allows others to be validated and allows others to know and realize whatever struggle they may be facing, you're not alone. Others have walked this path. You gotta learn from others' traumas, other stories, others' emotional aspects. Again, through this community, you realize you're not alone. A sense of belonging starts at here. It starts with a community filled with healing. A quote from Chambers and Etheon, they had their students do a research, and this research was research. They had tasked their students to interview people within their community. And a lot of students reflecting on this process felt pride and happy. A student had said that it helped them reconnect with their identity and traditions. Being able to interview someone sparked and ignited a feeling of emotion, being able to connect with their own identity, creating connections with one another. At the end, authenticity is the glue that binds everything together and holds everything together. For my future implications, this research highlights that authentic narratives helps people feel seen, heard, and validated, create a sense of belonging within that community. Moving forward to my data portion of my presentation. Before I dive deep and share quotes that I found throughout my papers and my research, I want to kind of give you guys a visual representation of how storytelling may look like across the globe. Right now, the world's population is roughly about 8.2 billion and is expanding every day. And according to the Center for Great Commission Studies, also known as the CGCS, states that 70 to 80% of the world are still oral learners. That's roughly 6 billion people. And with the 6 billion people, they learn best through conversations and spoken communication. Storytelling to this day is still one of the most primary ways that humans learn and how information is passed down from one person down to the next. With this map, it shows roughly 7,000 languages across the world, even more. And a large number of these languages still belong to indigenous communities, where oral storytelling becomes a main way that knowledge is passed down from one generation to the next. Oral traditions exist on every continent. No matter where you're on Earth, there's a form of oral traditional storytelling. And for thousands of years, storytelling was a main way that people preserved knowledge before written systems have ever existed. And this helps us understand why authentic storytelling still matters to this day. Moving forward to my data portion, and talking about and researching all these things, I learned about one consistent theme that kept on showing up time after time again. And that's how storytelling has a unique way to build trust across generations. A quote from Mufasa Guru Cruz, they tasked their students to interview an elder within their respective community. And a student had wrote a roller coaster of emotions. At first glance, this quote may not seem significant, but diving deep into it, it shows that authentic stories build trust. It shows that it builds trust because this elder is sharing the raw truth, their raw experience, their story to this person. And when that story could be filled with emotion, sadness, anger, joy, excitement, it could be filled with everything. And this shows why it's a roller coaster of emotions. Being able to hear someone's story is very impactful because authentic stories deepens empathy and understanding with one another. Being able to hear real experiences kind of puts you into their perspective and puts you there in their shoes. You get to look at the world through their point of view. And being able to do this, and a lot of the students at the end of this assignment was able to feel gratitude. Gratitude because they were able to preserve knowledge and learn history. Preserving culture and language and identity carries values and memories and keeping community traditions alive. A quote from Chambers and Ifion states that a student had written, "Proud of who I am and where I came from." This is important because storytelling has a unique ability to reflect on one's own experience and learn and reflect that, I'm proud who I am, I'm proud of what I learned, giving a sense of belonging. Another quote, and my final quote from Mufasa Guru Cruz, states that storytelling was able to give a voice to women who've been silenced. Like I mentioned before early on in this presentation, storytelling has the ability to give a voice to people who have been overlooked or silenced. And through the power of storytelling, it can empower individuals to share their knowledge with everyone. Overall, my data shows that authentic storytelling builds trust, creates empathy, preserves culture, strengthens belonging, and empowers silent voices. It connects people emotionally. Moving over to my target audience slide. My target audience is the administration, faculty, legislators, and other decision makers. The purpose of this documentary is to show why programs like these matters, highlighting real student experiences. My proposed solution is, by capturing the process of peer mentoring through the authentic storytelling, this project provides an educational insight into the importance of this service that spotlights real experiences, building community belonging, and shows how peer mentoring helps students feel supported, understood, and less alone in their academic journey. Moving over to my preparation and process slide, this is broken down into 3 different phases: pre, production, and post. In my pre-production phase, this is where the outline of my script happens. This is where I create my script, start formulating interview questions, create a storyboard of how everything is going to run down and go through. And of course, scouting out locations, getting a general idea of where I want to, make this production happen. And it's important to keep a schedule and make a schedule. Schedules are important because it keeps everything organized and you know exactly what is happening on what date. Moving over to my production phase. My production phase is the fun part. This is where, you finally get to interview someone. You get to hear their authentic story, the real truth. This is where I sit down the person and then interview them. And after interviewing them, I'm going to be gathering B-roll. So whatever thing they may be talking about, I'm going to try to put some footage. So in time for the post-production phase, I'm going to overlay this footage so the viewer and audience can understand what this person may be talking about. And at the end of each day, it's important to sort the footage. Sorting the footage makes it easier in the post-production phase. Throughout this page, I'll also be posting behind the scenes content on Instagram and X. Like I mentioned before, I'm going to be posting little clips and highlights of how my progress is going and flowing. Moving over to my post phase, this is arguably one of my favorite parts. In this phase, this is where the editing happens. This is where I get to put all my clips on the timeline and create one seamless video. This is where I get to color grade, add audio, add subtitles, and of course, create graphics. These graphics are important because it helps portray the story and it also makes it visually interesting to look at. And of course, create thumbnails to draw the viewer in. And of course, post more behind the scenes content on X and Instagram. Moving forward to my deliverable page. This is a storyboard of mood board of how I will envision my story to unfold and what it may look like. Starting off to the left, to the right, over here, this is kind of the visual graphics I had in mind. For my story and for my interview, I had an idea of if a person was talking about an important article or important piece, I'm going to bring that article and highlight and show the audience exactly where they found this information or how it looks like, showcasing it in a cool, interactive way, visually grabbing the viewer's attention. And another idea I had is called cutting the curve. This is where I have an image of one object, and midway through the keyframe, it slowly transitions to another object in a smooth and seamless way. This is kind of the general idea of what I had for when it comes to creating visual and entertaining graphics to look at throughout this series. Moving forward to the middle portion of my presentation. The middle portion of my mood board is how I envision my story to look like and how it's going to flow. When researching what I wanted to do, I came upon this video where this artist is getting interviewed. And I thought it was a great way, a very visual aspect of exactly what I envision. Because in this interview, it's very straightforward. This is where the person is sitting down and looking straight forward, talking to the camera, talking to the person, telling their authentic story. And throughout the surrounding images is the B-roll. So in the top right is of him talking about his art pieces. Or to the bottom left, him talking about mixing colors, creating a specific color. And this is what I envision my story to look like, is when a person is talking about something, I want to showcase it. I want to let the viewer and let the audience know exactly what they're talking about, give them an immersive feeling. And to the bottom right of this image, I also wanted to incorporate different perspective, a different camera angle of how the interview may go and what it looks like. I feel like adding a different perspective and a different view of the interviewee creates a more in-depth story, gives the story more emotion. And in the middle is the color palette I chose. I wanted to give colors that feels warm and inviting because this is about the truth, people sharing the truth and what they have to share. And moving over to the right side is an idea of what I wanted my Instagram page to kind of look like. I found this on Instagram and I took a screenshot of it. And it was of somebody sharing the behind the scenes progress of them working on a production. And I kind of want to do something very similar where I'm able to have pictures and images and little short clips and post it on my Instagram and show the audience of how my project is going and where I am currently in this phase. Moving over to my second part of my deliverable, this is exactly how I envision my story to look like. My story is broken down into 4 different episodes. And episode 1 to episode 3 is tied to one of the significance that I shared earlier on in this presentation. My first episode is going to focus on what is premarital. This is defining it. And just like significance 1, this showcases the meaning. In episode 2, you're going to hear from the West Oahu staff and West Oahu student mentors. And this is the importance of it. This is where you're going to hear the trust, just like significance too. This is the trust of it. Moving forward to my third episode is going to be hearing from the client perspective. The client's perspective, meaning the people who are being interviewed. And this shows the impact. And this is significance number 3, the connection. And in my fourth episode is going to be the conclusion. You're going to hear again from the from the West Oahu staff and West Oahu student mentors, and summing up everything what happened from episode 1 to episode 3. So this is tying in everything and concluding the series. And throughout this series, episode 1 is going to be about 2 to 3 minutes long, while episodes 2 to 4 is going to be 5 to 10 minutes long. Overall, what I learned about authentic stories is it has the unique ability to build trust, connect people, and preserve history. My capstone pays this tribute for by being able to document real experiences being done by the Kavaiola team. Thank you all for listening to my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.